In 1969, Apollo 11 made history, but hidden in the archives was the real the world was never meant to see. No one small step, no cheers from mission control, only silence and a voice. It's not rock, it's breathing. The hum of fluorescent lights above Jack Ellison's desk was a constant, neither bright enough to see clearly nor dim enough to ignore. The basement level of the manned spacecraft center smelled like old wires and carbon dust, a fitting purgatory for forgotten analysis and their ghosts. Jack sat hunched in his chair, flipping through canisters of Apollo footage that would never see the light of a public broadcast. His background in military intelligence, once promising, had landed him here after a quiet demotion disguised as special assignment. He called it exile. They called it clearance. Jack had a mind tuned to patterns, voice modulations, visual noise artifacts, even irregularities in data code. That's why he noticed a tape that shouldn't have been there, misfiled beneath NOAA weather logs. The reel was labeled in red grease pencil. Internal eyes only, Apollo 11, uncut. No metadata, no accompanying log, just weight in the palm that felt too heavy for its casing. He brought it to Chamber C, sealed, soundproof, and unwatched. He loaded the reel onto the Bell and Howell projector, adjusted the feed, and leaned back, letting the old film flicker into life. At first, it matched everything he'd seen a dozen times. Static, white noise, and the familiar grainy descent of the lunar module. But seconds in, the transmission began to diverge. Armstrong and Aldrin descended not toward the smooth plains of the Sea of Tranquility, but into a jagged basin choked in shadow. The crater stretched unnaturally wide, its interior landscape marked by ridges that shimmered, not reflecting light, but pulsing with it. There was no chatter between the astronauts, no mention of one small step. Instead, Armstrong's voice crackled through in a whisper, distorted and clipped by static. It's not rock, it's breathing. The signal waved. Aldrin turned his head sharply as if hearing something off camera. His face behind the visor was unreadable, but his posture had changed. Rigid, alert. The hum began then, low and wet, like a cello string dragged through thick mud. The screen blurred, bent inward, then static. For 90 minutes, Jack sat frozen, his skin cold despite the stifling of heat in the chamber. His first instinct was protocol. Log the anomaly, alert command, secure the media. But protocol never accounted for a lie this deep. He rewound the reel. The same sequence played again. Breathing rock, visual distortion, Armstrong's terrified whisper. Then nothing. The official Apollo 11 records logged no such terrain, no missing time, no deviation from the script, which meant someone had cut this footage, buried it. Jack rubbed his temples, the burn of adrenaline percolating to the base of his skull. This wasn't just a wrong tape. It was suppressed truth, deliberate, systematic. The question wasn't just what the astronauts found. It was who decided the world could never know. And Jack had just unearthed their secret. The January sun cast a weak light over the chipped tables of Dixie's diner, where cigarette smoke clung to the ceiling tiles, and every coffee refill came with a side of suspicion. Jack Ellison sat in the far booth, blazer wrinkled from the drive, eyes scanning each reflection in the diner's aluminum trim. It was the kind of place where secrets could pass like sugar packets, low, casual, deniable. His hands rested on the briefcase beside him, locked, heavy. Across from him sat Evelyn Marsh. Her expression said, "I've heard it all," but Jack could see the flicker of curiosity beneath the sarcasm. Evelyn was a photographic analyst at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, known for dismantling cover stories with nothing more than a slide projector and a razor tongue. She didn't suffer fools or superiors. "You dragged me out of bed for a conspiracy theory?" she asked, stirring her coffee without drinking it. Jack didn't answer. He slid a folder across the table and tapped the top of the projector reel case. "Play it." The diner's backroom was dark, cramped, and occasionally used for poker games. Jack threaded the reel to a portable projector, aiming the beam at a sheet tacked against the wall. Evelyn watched in silence, at first with professional detachment, then with the stillness of someone realizing They just stepped into deep, black water. Her hand lifted to her mouth when Armstrong whispered, "It's not rock, it's breathing." Evelyn didn't speak. Her cigarette, forgotten, burned halfway to ash. "I thought I was crazy," she said finally, voice low, "but I've seen this crater." "You what?" "Back in October, I was cross-referencing spectral scans from Surveyor 6. The surface patterns, they pulsed, but when I logged the anomaly, it disappeared from the archives the next day." Over the next week, they pulled resources in secret, official lunar cartography, telemetry scans, surface EVA reports, all riddled with inconsistencies, shadow angles that didn't align with the sun's vector, identical rock formations repeating in different quadrants, audio tapes with unexplainable cuts hidden under artificial radio bursts. Someone had been cleaning house with surgical precision. Their trail led them east to Site D7, a long, shuttered facility in the Arizona desert, once used as a relay hub for early lunar transmissions, and now sat abandoned behind a rusted fence and rows of forgotten satellites like fossilized bones. Evelyn bypassed the archaic lock system. Inside, amid blown fuses and nests of wiring, found boxes of magnetic tapes, many warped by time, but one drive remained intact, just barely. It took them 3 sleepless days to reconstruct the data, line by corrupted line. Evelyn wept once, briefly, when the checksum finally confirmed stability. Then, the file played. A low-frequency hum, then a voice, broken, layered, wrong. The signal twisted, reversed, then like someone adjusting a cosmic dial, it shifted into perfect English.
"You have stepped upon flesh cloaked in stone. You are seen. Your world will end. It will be consumed. Callux comes. In 200 cycles of your sun, your star will be dust."
The timestamp didn't lie. The transmission occurred hours after Apollo 11's departure. Then, the seismic data hit. Evelyn cross-referenced the logs. Every lunar seismometer had registered a shockwave, identical in timing. The signature was unnatural, coordinated, as if something vast had stirred beneath the surface, reacting not to touch, but to voice. Jack exhaled, staring at the screen. "That wasn't a message." "No," Evelyn said. "That was a warning." The silence between Jack and Evelyn had changed. It was no longer comfortable or calculating. It was dense, filled with the unspoken knowledge that they were holding something too big, too dangerous. Jack paced their makeshift workspace inside a derelict motel, outside of Flagstaff, where the peeling wallpaper and flickering lights mirrored the fragility of their situation. Evelyn sat hunched over a military-grade tape deck, headphones pressed tightly against her ears, scribbling notes at an increasingly frantic pace. They were chasing ghosts, but the trail was very real. Official NASA reports show no mention of the transmission from Site D7. The logs had been purged, deleted cleanly, and cross-referenced with forged replacements. Jack obtained internal memos with former contacts and Army Signals Intelligence. He had to trade favors he never wanted to owe. The memos referenced unauthorized telemetry drift during Apollo 11's surface phase. No explanation, just a 3-letter designation, CXS. Evelyn uncovered a redacted audio transcript from July 22nd, 1969, 2 days after the broadcast. It referenced responsive signal activity and intent-driven resonance. Another memo, signed by a high-level administrator at Langley, concluded ominously, "Engagement with unknown lunar intelligence confirmed. Recommend controlled disinformation." "I think we woke it up," Evelyn said quietly, staring at the same line for the 100th time. Whatever Callux is, it was dormant until they stepped on the crater. Jack nodded slowly. This wasn't first contact. It was a mistake, a trespass. Their hunt led him to an aging propulsion technician named Gene Halverson, now living under VA disability near Alamogordo. Half blind, Gene welcomed in only after Jack mentioned the crater by name. He poured whiskey into chip mugs and stared at the TV static for a long while before speaking. "They knew the moon was wrong," Gene rasped. "Telemetry came back all kinds of crooked after tranquility. They never said what they saw, but whatever it was, they sent it back with them." Jack leaned forward, Sent what back? Gene just shook his head. That's why they built Apollo 18. Jack froze. That was cancelled. Budget cuts. No, they built it. Launched from Complex 14. But it never came back. Not officially.
That night, Jack drove back to his apartment and found the black sedan parked across the street. Again, no movement, no plates, just presence. Watching. At JPL, Evelyn discovered her badge no longer opened the lower level labs. Her name had been removed from the internal directory. Her supervisor gave her a tight-lipped personnel restructuring excuse. She said nothing, but her hands, they trembled as she locked her office. For the last time, something had shifted. They weren't just being followed, they were being erased.
By week's end, they made a plan. Collect the remaining logs, copy them, and pass them off to a trusted reporter Jack had worked with during his army years. The drop would be a small airfield in New Mexico, timed just before dawn. A simple transfer, no speeches, just truth. Finally, in motion, Jack arrived at the motel first. Evelyn followed hours later, drained and shaken. But with the final set of tapes in hand, she looked at him and smiled faintly. We're almost there.
He never had the chance to answer. The motel window shattered inward. Tactical boots struck hardwood. Muffled voices, military precision. A syringe drove into Jack's neck before he could reach his weapon. Evelyn screamed, briefly, then darkness, and the tapes, spinning silently in the corner, still recording. The first thing Jack Ellison noticed was the silence, not absence of sound, but the engineered stillness of a place built to muffle panic. The second was the light, fluorescent white oppressive, spilling from panels embedded in the seamless ceiling. He blinked hard, head pounding, limbs sluggish beneath the hum of something low and electrical. His arms were restrained, so were his legs.
Beside him, Evelyn stirred on her own medical gurney, brow damp with sweat, eyes flickering between confusion and anger. Her voice cracked as she tried to speak. Jack? I'm here. Jack turned as much as the restraints allowed, his voice low but steady. We're not dead. The walls were polished steel, seamless and curved. No windows, no clocks. One door flush with the wall, without a handle. A place without time, buried, controlled. A soft hiss signaled the doors opening. Two men entered, armed, faceless, behind black visors. Between them walked a tall, broad-shouldered man in a charcoal suit with a pin so plain it felt significant. His hair was silver and neat, his face unreadable. He stopped 3 paces from Jack and spoke in a voice that carried all the weight of authority without needing to raise it. I'm Director Keene. You've both seen what wasn't meant to be found. I'm here to explain why. Jack struggled against the cuffs. Where are we? Somewhere secure, Keene said. The name of the facility is Interstellar, founded in 1958 under a joint resolution between the US and a small consortium of nations still pretending they don't know this place exists. Evelyn's lip curled. Interstellar? You actually gave your conspiracy a sci-fi code name? Keene smiled faintly. It's not a conspiracy, it's a contingency. He paced slowly between the gurneys. The moon is not a natural satellite. It was placed in orbit long before Homo sapiens carved their first symbols into stone. It is hollow, compartmentalized, a construct, a sentinel. Jack froze. A warning system. Keene nodded. Correct. When Armstrong stepped into that crater, it wasn't exploration. It was activation.
He tapped a control pad. A screen dropped from the ceiling, playing a grainy clip of distorted lunar footage. Not from Apollo 11, but from another mission. The landscape shimmered. Metallic roots pulsed beneath the surface.
Callux, Keene said, eyes fixed on the screen. A stellar intelligence born during the death of stars. It drifts across systems, unbound, patient. When a sense is in balance, it consumes, not out of malice, out of design. The moon is its sentinel. Jack stared. You're saying the seismic spike was a beacon, Keene confirmed. It was never a glitch, it was a handshake protocol. And now we are on its map. Evelyn's voice was thin. How long? Keene didn't flinch. We estimate 200 solar cycles, give or take. You won't live to see it, but your children's children might. Jack tried to process the weight of it. Why tell us any of this? Because I'm offering you a choice, Keen said. You can walk out of here with every memory scrubbed, live your lives, be safe, or you can stay, help us prepare for what comes after Earth. The silence returned, deafening, sacred. Jack looked at Evelyn. She met his eyes. No words passed between them, just a nod. We stay, Jack said. Keen pressed his palm to the wall. The restraints released with a soft hiss. He turned and motioned them to follow. The corridor beyond the door hummed with invisible current. They walked in silence, boots echoing on polished alloy. Then the hallway ended. Blast doors 20 feet tall groaned open, revealing a hidden world beneath the earth. Jack stepped forward, breath stolen. Massive hangars stretched beyond sight, lined with vessels that defied classification, some bearing NASA insignias, others crafted from metals that shimmered like oil and water. Alien alloys fused with human steel, docking ports, engineering bays, cryonic labs. Above them, a glowing lattice of artificial suns bathed the entire space in amber light. Jack's voice was barely a whisper. What do you do here? Keen didn't look back as he answered. We build what comes after Earth. There was no sunrise on the ground. Inside interstellar sublevels, time dissolved into tasks. Sleep came in artificial cycles. Meals were rationed, digested in silence. Jack had stopped wearing a watch. There was no point. Above them, the moon hung like a loaded gun in the night sky, silent, suspended, watching. The hum of the compound never ceased. Servers processing signal drift, prototype fusion drives spinning in preparation, deep drills testing Martian soil, shipped in under secrecy. Evelyn sat hunched over her console, eyes flickering through radiation shield models and life support equations for Project Shipseed, a generational arc bound for Proxima Centauri b. Jack monitored telemetry from long-range, deep sky scopes, reviewing early launch simulations and storage capabilities. But the numbers, they started shifting. The ship's max capacity had quietly been revised down from 3,000 to 1,200. At first, the explanation was technical. Fuel margins, long-term redundancy, margin of error. But Evelyn found personnel records with a different story. Hundreds of highly qualified candidates, genetics, ecologists, linguists, denied clearance, their files flagged, sealed. Then she found the art directive. A silent sub-project locked behind Interstellar's highest clearance. Its purpose was staggering. A genomic archive of the Earth's most desirable lineages. Not scientists, not innovators. Dynasties. Legacy families. The project didn't just intend to preserve humanity. It intended to curate it. She confronted Jack in the hydroponics chamber, eyes wild. They're not trying to save us all. They're trying to rebuild their version of us. That night, they faced Keen in his private office. An oxygen-still room, the walls are quiet. Matte steel. This isn't about fairness, Keen said calmly. It's about continuity. The survivors must be capable of rebuilding civilizations, of maintaining hierarchy, not chaos. Survival without structure is extinction. Evelyn stood. You're not saving humanity. You're cloning its corruption. Keen didn't argue. He simply tapped the holoscreen, revealing timelines, engineered, milestones, and names. Names Jack recognized from the corridors. Names Evelyn had trusted. You think there's still time to argue philosophy, Keen said. There isn't. But then, the sirens began. Low, bone deep, vibrating through concrete and steel. The corridors flashed red. Voices rose. Jack and Evelyn pushed past personnel, following the flow to central command. Inside, the air was thick with static. A wall of monitors displayed space-time maps. On one screen, a single object moving in an impossible trajectory, breaking all known astrophysical norms. No heat signature, no propulsion, no deflection from gravity wells. The object was massive. It was alive. The system labeled it automatically. Callux. ETA 106 years. Not 200. Not distant generations. Theirs. Silence fell. Text backed away from the displays as if physical distance could protect them. Evelyn stared, lips parted. Jack gripped the console's edge. Keen didn't flinch. He looked at them and said, with chilling finality, "Now you understand." Jack felt the gravity shift inside him, not from space, but from certainty. There was no longer room for moral calculus or perfect justice.
It was a war against time now. He turned to Evelyn. We built the ship. We launched it. Her fingers trembled, but her voice was steady. No more secrets. No more filters. Jack agreed. They returned to their stations, code scrolled across Evelyn's screen as she rewrote the ARC's passenger selection protocols. Jack bypassed the Arch database, encrypting their edits behind the firewall. Only the two of them got access. Outside, the moon remained unchanged, but inside Interstellar, everything shifted. They would not live to see the stars, but they would build the road to them. The countdown had changed. The purpose had evolved. This wasn't just about escape. It was about defiance. And so began humanity's quiet rebellion, not with violence, but with vision. A stolen future rebuilt line by line, cell by cell. Earth would fall, but humanity would not.